Ayan, gising na ba ang lahat? For our presentation, I would like to ask first, have you ever wondered how scientists figure out specific elements that is found in samples? And if you're curious about that, then that is what are we gonna talk about today. So good day everyone. I am Kila Vacos from Boron Group and it's an honor to start this joyous and informative presentation with the title Elemental Barcodes: The Science Behind Atomic Absorption Spectroscopy, or also known as AES, and Atomic Emission Spectroscopy, or also known as AES. And these methods work like barcodes for elements that help us identify and measure them based on how they interact with light. So in this presentation, we'll break down how AAS and AES work and why they are important in everyday science. For our table of contents, we will discuss first atomic spectra, followed by AES, and last but not the least is AES. So first, we'll talk about atomic spectra. But before that, let's define atomic spectroscopy first. So with this definition that we are currently seeing in the slide, we can say that atomic spectroscopy works by studying how atoms absorb or emit light, and mostly in the ultraviolet region. Because why? It has high energy, which is needed to excite electrons in an atom. And we can see here that the spectra, please go back, the spectra needed to be converted in gaseous atoms because it allows for the study of isolated molecules and their properties. So kapag kailangan natin siya ng gaseous atoms, kasi dito mas ma-analyze natin yung molecules free from intermolecular forces because it can complicate analysis. So next. So for atomic spectra, so kapag yung atoms are excited, nag-emit sila ng light of certain wavelengths na nagko-corresponds to different colors. So yung emitted light na yon, itong nandito sa picture sa taas, ito yung tinatawag natin na spectra. So for this topic, magpo-focus tayo dun sa may nasa baba, which is yung may black background with light colors. Yun yung tinatawag natin na line or atomic spectra. While yung nasa taas naman, yun naman yung tinatawag natin na emission spectra. And did you know that yung kada atomic spectra, ganyan, they are unique for each element. So when they are unique for each element, dito natin nakikita kung ano yung element na nandoon sa sample. And ang galing, di ba? So next. So now we will discuss atomic absorption spectroscopy, or also known as AAS. So basically, kung iintindihin natin siya, para siyang spectroscopy, pero focus siya sa sample through light absorption. So in summary, yung AAS nag-work siya through light absorption by atoms and at gaseous state. As mentioned kanina, kaya siya gaseous state because we want our molecules to be isolated and free from solvents or IMFs. Kasi when in gaseous states, meaning it is heated up. So kapag na-excite yung atoms, and take note, we use light to excite atoms. And when the atom is excited, it goes to a higher energy level and nag-absorb siya ng specific colors of light. At ito yung nakikita natin na atomic spectra. So next. So now that we have established what is AAS, let us not forget its essential component. So in this slide, we will discuss photometers, and responsible ang photometers for measuring the intensity of light. So meron siyang dalawang type. First is the single beam photometer. So in this picture, the grayish one, ito yung source. So dito nagmumula yung light. So sa single beam, una siyang dadaan dun sa chopper. Ayun, yung chopper, yung parang manobela dito sa picture. So, yung chopper, responsible siya for blocking and allowing light to pass through. So basically, dito sa single beam photometer, yung direction niya is single line lang yung dinadaanan niya, direkta lang siya papunta sa atomizer. So next. While dito naman sa double beam photometer, makikita natin nagkakaroon ng split dun sa light. Yung sample light, dumidiretso siya sa atomizer and nako-convert into gaseous phase. While yung isa naman, nag-i-split upward siya and napupunta siya sa reference beam. So bakit siya nag-i-split up pero at the end, magjo-join together din naman sila? So nag-i-split up siya kasi si reference beam, ginagamit natin siya for calibration and correction. And dito tayo nagre-refer kung tama ba yung name-measure natin doon sa may sample beam. So next, let's discuss naman ngayon yung atomization method. So meron tayong mga atomization method at dito, essential siya sa AAS kasi dito sa atomization, as said earlier, it converts samples into free atoms na nakakapag-absorb ng light. So sa madaling salita, sa flame atomization, gumagamit tayo ng flame to break down atoms into free atoms. Yun lang yung pinaka-gist ni flame atomization. So next. For graphite furnace atomization or also known as electrothermal atomization, dito naman sa method na to, gumagamit tayo ng graphite tube at dito natin piniplace yung sample natin until it reaches very high temperature up to 3,000 degrees Celsius. And dito naman sa high temperature na to, doon nako-convert si free atoms into gaseous phase. So next. For hydrogenation method, yung method na to ginagamit sa elements para mag-form siya ng hydride. So makikita natin dito sa picture. Often arsenic, antimony, selenium, mga ganon. And yung reducing agent na ginagamit is madalas sodium borohydride. So ginagamit siya to generate hydrides from elements in the sample. Ngayon, yung hydrides na yun, nagbe-vaporize siya and saka siya na-atomize para maging free atoms. So last method, we have the cold vapor method. So dun sa kabila, sa hydride generation, hinihit natin siya. Sa cold vapor naman, halos hawig lang sila. Pero dito, hindi tayo gumagamit ng heating. And dito, mainly used siya for mercury and other volatile metals. So next, for AES principle, it works based on the Beer-Lambert law. I'm sure that we are all familiar with. So, basically sinasabi lang ni Beer-Lambert law, as the concentration of the substance increases, less light yung nagpapass through sa sample and more light yung naa-absorb. So, yun lang po. And that's it for the principles. For the step in AES, Mr. Wellester Manuel will further continue. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. First of all, good morning pala. For the sample preparation regarding atomic absorption spectroscopy or the AAS, this is one of the detailed sample preparation that I got from the thermal features. So branch siya ng AAS, and eto, pero I will reiterate na lang yung mga simple or general term na ginagamit for sample preparation for AAS. So first is to convert solid samples into liquid form for AAS analysis. So we usually use low molecular solvents for nebulizing efficiency. For example, yung mga alcohols, ketones, and ethers. And for acid digestions naman, we usually use a strong acids such as the nitric acid, hydrochloric acid, and sulfuric acid for us to dissolve metals or yung mga samples natin that we have to analyze during our chemical analysis. And for the fusion method, we melt samples with flux, usually lithium borate for acid dissolution. And for dry ashing, we burn organic matter at 450 degrees to 600 degrees Celsius. Next, for filtration and centrifugation, we remove undissolved particles that can clog the nebulizer as we want to aerosolize the our analyte for us to go to the flame or to the atomizer. And for the sample dilution and standardization, we adjust the concentration to fit the instrument detection range. We also prepare calibration standard with high purity metal solution. So during standardization, we also prepare internal standards for us to correct signals variation later on. So itong mga internal standards na to, these are the chemicals that we prepare for us to correct sample doses during sample preparation. So later we will discuss that during the interferences section. And for the matrix modification and interference control, we reduces interference affecting AAS accuracy. So we usually use modifiers. For example, this lanthanum and strontium for preventing phosphate interference, and also this releasing agent and as well as the protecting agent. So this EDTA and the palladium. And we're also later on i-explain pa natin siya thoroughly for the interference. And lastly, for sample storage and handling, we prevent contamination and analyte loss. We store it in acid wash polyethylene or Teflon containers, and we minimize air exposures for volatile elements such as mercury. And for the steps, it will be discussed by Alisa Palizal.
So let us now walk through the 5 key steps involved in atomic absorption spectroscopy. We have atomization, absorption, monochromator, detector, and the application of Beer's law. To provide a clear understanding of the steps involved in AAS, let us now discuss the instrumentation and the operational principles of how atomic absorption works. Next slide, please. First, we have the atomizer, which converts the sample into individual atoms by introducing it into a flame or graphite furnace where the sample is heated until its atom turn into a gaseous state. We have 2 types of atomizer, which are the flame atomizer that uses a flame and a nebulizer to turn the sample into fine mist-like droplets. Second, we have electrothermal atomizer, which uses an electrically heated tube, such as graphite furnace, for gradual heating. Second, we have the radiation source, which is responsible for emitting light that will be absorbed by the atoms of the sample. We also have 2 types, which are line sources that emit light at very specific wavelengths that match the absorption lines of that target metal. An example for this are hollow cathode lamp, which is commonly used light source that produces light at specific wavelength corresponding to the element being analyzed, resulting in the excitation of its electrons. Second is electrodeless discharge lamp, which is a more intense source that provides stronger light for better detection of some elements. The second type of radiation source is the continuum sources, which emits light over a wide range of wavelengths rather than just one specific line and require higher resolution monochromators to isolate the wavelength of interest. Third, we have the monochromator, which is a device that effectively filters light by eliminating unwanted wavelengths and blocking interferences, thereby permitting only the specific wavelengths required for analysis to pass through and send it to the detector. In line with this, the detector works like a light sensor that measures the amount of light absorbed by the atoms in the sample. A common type of this is the photomultiplier tube, which can detect very weak light signals and convert light into electrical signals. Afterwards, the signal generated by the detector is strengthened by the amplifier, which thereby facilitates more accurate detection and analysis. And lastly, we have the recorder device, which is commonly a computer containing system that records and processes absorption data utilizing a calibration curve based on Beer's law, which states that absorbance is directly proportional to the concentration of the absorbing species and the path length. Now, how does this apply in AAS? This idea, which is the Beer's law, helps us determine how much of a specific element is in a sample by measuring how much light its atom absorbs. So for the next part of the presentation, here is Mr. Wellester Manuel.
Metals can be detected by atomic absorption spectroscopy. As you can see in the table, most of these are seen in the transition metals for the periodic table. We have the aluminum, cadmium, lead, and niobium. Next. For the quantitative analysis and atomic absorption spectroscopy, we utilize the principle of the Beer-Lambert's law, which we plot absorbance against concentration. Then we use the calibration curve to determine the unknown concentration. So for quantitative analysis in atomic absorption spectroscopy, the standard addition method helps compensate for compositional differences between standards and unknowns. And we usually use two standards above and below the unknown absorbance to improve our accuracy during our data analysis. And for interferences in AAS, we have two types for interferences, the spectral and the non-spectral. And non-spectral is composed of matrix, chemical, and ionization. For spectral interference, occurs when nearby atomic or molecular absorption overlaps with the analyte spectral line, which can be corrected by selecting an alternative line or using background correction. When we say background correction, we usually use the Zeeman background correction or the deuterium background correction. So the difference between that is we utilize the deuterium lamp, then we subtract the absorbance from the deuterium lamp from the halo cathode that gives us the correct absorbance. And as for the Zeemans, we usually use a magnetic wave for us to an alternating magnetic field that is applied to the atomizer, especially using the graphite furnace. So for the matrix interference caused by differences in physical properties, example, the viscosity, surface tension between the sample and standard, we usually use standard addition method for us to eliminate the matrix interference. So, yun yung kadalasan nag-i-spike tayo ng ini-spike natin yung yung analyte natin with a pure and known concentration of the participating species na ina-analyze natin. For chemical interference naman, happens when the analyte forms a staple compound that is not fully dissociated by the flame. So, this chemical interference usually form kapag yung mga chemicals is nagpo-form ng non-volatile compound. For example, yung sa analysis ng calcium, certain chemicals there are forming to become non-volatile compounds. So we have to treat them with releasing agent and protecting agent such yung 1% EDTA na ginagamit natin, yung na-mention kanina during the sample preparation, as well as the releasing agents such as yung lantum or from lanthanides. And also for ionization interference, this is more common at high temperature since the atoms are ionized. Instead na they have to be in ground state. So we usually put easily ionizable elements for us to, for example, in chemical equilibrium, we suppress the product side with the free electrons so that they have to go back to the left side, which is the ground state of the atoms. Last for the AAS is the application of AAS. So these are the application of the AAS, which is for agriculture, chemical, environmental study, food industry, forensic, mining, nuclear energy, and petrochemical, as well as pharmaceutical. So in general, for the application of AAS, this is just for a single elemental analysis. So yeah. So this is sample application for lead detection using flame. Yet we're not going to watch that since we're running out of time na. So let's proceed for the atomic emission spectroscopy or AES.
Okay, so now na natapos na natin yung atomic absorption of spectroscopy, we will now proceed to atomic emission spectroscopy. So next slide, please. So quick definition lang po about atomic emission spectroscopy. Okay, so this is a multi-elemental analysis that allows, wherein yung analytes natin, they get simultaneously excited through the use of plasma, electric discharge, and like flame. Okay, so next slide. So in terms of their principles, so as the excited atoms relax in AES, so they give characteristic emissions, and to which this characteristic emission is to which their emission intensity rather is directly proportional doon sa ating excited state population. So, next slide please po. Okay, so next slide. So, as these atoms, so nakikita natin dito that as they return to their lower energy state, so they emit light and it was filtered through monochromators. And as I've said as stated earlier, that monochromators, so they separate yung individual wavelengths natin through a single exit slit. So, and also, in terms of the excitation state po for atomic emission spectroscopy is we use ICP-AES or ICP-OS, which is known as the inductively coupled plasma that can reach temperatures up to 10,000 Kelvin. And yes, as I've said earlier, it is used po for excitation source, as an excitation source. So next slide po, please. So other plasma sources or other sources, next slide. Okay, so other excitation sources that is used in AES can also include the recurrent plasmas. We can also use exploding wires or foils. We can also use glow discharge and lasers and more. So now we proceed sa ating next part. So I'm calling Christine Gonzalez.
The AES process involves several key steps, which we will go through in detail. So first, the type of sample, whether solid, liquid, or gas, determines the necessary preparation and handling procedures. Proper storage is also essential. Second, to ensure accurate results, solid samples are dissolved or fused into liquid form, while liquid samples are introduced using a nebulizer. Some solids can also be analyzed directly using arc, spark, or laser ablation. Moreover, sample solution is prepared by dissolving the analyte in a suitable solvent. Third, in this step, the prepared solution is converted into an aerosol using a nebulizer. This aerosol is then introduced into the excitation state, which can be flame, plasma, or arc. This process ensures efficient atomization and excitation, leading to accurate spectral analysis. So fourth, atomization breaks down the sample into free atoms using a high energy source like a flame, plasma, arc, or spark. This step is essential because it excites the atom, causing them to emit characteristic wavelengths of light. These emissions are then analyzed to determine the elemental composition of the sample. And then fifth, the emitted light from excited atoms is captured as they return to lower energy state. To analyze this light, it is separated into its component wavelengths using either a monochromator or a diffraction grating. These optical components help isolate individual emission lines for precise identification. So next. Now let's explore the two main types of atomization devices used in AAS, continuous atomizers and discrete atomizers. Continuous atomizers provide efficiency for high throughput analysis, while discrete atomizers offer superior sensitivity for trace level detection. Next. So now, let's go to the parts. So first, nebulizer. The nebulizer is a key component in AES, ensuring that only fine droplets reach the plasma for optical atomic emission analysis. This process enhances sensitivity and precision in elemental detection. Next. Plasma source. There are two common types of plasma source, inductively coupled plasma or ICP and direct current plasma or DCP. Both ICP and DCP are essential in AES, with ICP providing broader applications and DCP offering high energy atomization. The choice depends on the analysis requirements and sample type. So next is will be discussed by Christine Joy Salaysay.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, moving on to the wavelength isolator. This separates the emitted light into distinct wavelengths using a monochromator, polychromator, or spectrograph. Next slide, please. Moving on to the transducer, this converts light signals into electrical signals for analysis. The common detectors include photomultiplier tubes and charge-coupled devices. The photomultiplier tubes detects highly sensitive to low-intensity light, while CCDs allow simultaneous multi-element detection. Next slide. So last, for the parts, the microprocessor controller, this processes and interprets data, generating quantitative and qualitative results. Next slide. So for the instrument types, there are various instruments that are used to analyze the emitted light. First, the sequential spectrometers. This measure one element at a time by scanning different wavelengths sequentially. Multi-channel, this specifically refer to instruments with multiple detectors assigned to different wavelengths, enabling simultaneous detection. Next, the FTAES. This is a high-resolution technique that utilizes Fourier transform methods to enhance signal detection and spectral resolution. This provides greater sensitivity and precision, particularly for trace element analysis. Next slide. So moving on to the data analysis, the intensity of emitted light in AES is proportional to the concentration of excited atoms, allowing for precise quantitative analysis. The factors influencing the emission intensity are plasma temperature and calibration curves. So for the temperature, the higher temperatures result in stronger emission. So next slide. So for the calibration curves, they are used to correlate emission intensity with elemental concentration. Next. Oh, next slide. Next slide for the applications. So for the applications of AES is widely applied in diverse fields for detecting metals, trace elements, and inorganic substances. The key applications include metallurgy, rare element analysis, medical diagnostics, plasma manufacturing systems, and high current proton sources. So for the next slide, we will have Miss Tricia Claron, who will be discussing the summary.
Okay, so before we end the discussion, so here is the summary, or this is the table of comparison between atomic absorption spectroscopy and atomic emission spectroscopy. So they vary in various attributes, such as such as their principles, their excitation source, the sample state, measurement type, detection limit, interference, and applications. So ayun po. I think that is the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for listening to our report po. Ayun po.